Welcome to a CNY Wrestling podcast. This is part 2 of the 2016 to 2017 Class A previews.
All right. Welcome back to another CNY Wrestling podcast. This is going to be part 2 of the 2016-2017 Section 3 Class A previews. Thank you guys for checking out part 1 and for coming back to check out part 2. In this one, we're going to be discussing what I mentioned last time to be the heavy hitters of Class A. In part 1, we talked about Auburn, Carthage, and ESM. And while those are all fine wrestling programs, an argument can definitely be made that the next 3 programs I'm going to discuss are the top programs in Class A. We're talking about Fulton, we're talking about Indian River, and we're talking about New Hartford. I don't want to waste any time, so let's get right into it with the Fulton Red Raiders. In the last video, when I was kind of introducing Class A as a whole, I talked about the dominance that Fulton has had dating back for a while now. And so one thing I like to say to start off is I don't think Fulton's going to have too much trouble repeating as Class A team champions for what I think is the 28th consecutive year. I'm going to have to check my math on that one. But it's been since, I said last time, it's been since 1989 since someone other than Fulton won a Class A championship. And so I think that's going to be the case again this year. They're going to continue that streak. I think they'll definitely receive challenges from a few other teams I'm going to talk about in these previews. But I think they're still the top dogs to beat, and they are in Class A, and they probably are in Section 3, Division 1. We'll talk about how they fare in the entire division later on. As far as Class A goes, though, they seem like they're still at the top. A big part of that is defending class champion and sectional champion Jared Crucity. He's going to look to make it 2 in a row for both of those after a junior year that I thought really saw him improve by leaps and bounds from his sophomore year. And it's not that he was bad by any means when he was a sophomore. He still took 4th in Class A and Section 3, and then he upped both of those last year to class titles and a sectional title as a junior. And just the few times I saw him wrestle, he really seemed to be a really solid heavyweight. Definitely an excellent heavyweight. Saw him wrestle at the sectional tournament. He had a great finals match with Dylan Ashwood, who we will talk about later. Crucity is a big part of Fulton's success, really anchoring down the heavyweights. There's plenty of talent to follow him, though, and it even starts all the way down in 8th and 9th grade. You can go down to the youngins on the Fulton roster. And even a little after that, Fulton might have one of, if not the most talented sophomore groups in Section 3 heading into next year. Guys like Caleb Carrion, who was a Class A champion and Section 3 runner-up in what I think was his first full varsity year. Nick Noel, 3-time class placer, 2-time sectional placer. He just seems like he's always primed for a breakout year. Adam DeMauro, defending Class A champ and Section 3 runner-up. And I want to say the year before that, he was a class runner-up and 4th in the section. And then you have Thomas Hughes, who was 2nd in Class A, 3rd in Section 3. Those guys are all 10th graders, so they're going to have 2 years after this year to lead the Fulton program. And that's a pretty impressive 10th grade portion of the roster. You go down a year below that, and this is where I was talking about with the even younger Fulton roster. We're talking about the impressively tough Cameron Galvin, who is going to lead the Red Raider freshman. Galvin was 2nd in Class A, 4th in Section 3. He really came out at the end of the year, got some impressive wins at the sectional tournament. A lot of guys like him and just know how tough he is when he wrestles. He seems to be close to that top level. You know, he doesn't get beat bad by anyone, that type of guy. And so we have all those guys, the sophomores, the freshmen, and Galvin. But you can't forget about the load of seniors that Fulton has either. We talked about Crucity. Then there's Wyatt Willis. He's won nearly 70 matches the last 2 years. Has taken 4th and 3rd at the SRC Arena. Was an overtime semifinal away from making the finals last year. He's always one of the more impressive lightweights on the D1 side. Then you have Roy French. He's hardly out of any match he wrestles in. It seems like he placed in the section for the first time last year. And then you have Andrew Yablonsky. He found himself a 3rd place Section 3 finish a week after he took 4th in Class A earlier this winter. So he upped his finish when there was better competition. That's a really impressive fact. And so there, it seems like wherever you look in Fulton's lineup, lightweights, middleweights, heavyweights, whatever grade you're looking at, you're going to find talent. And considering, like I said before, how dominant the team has been since the 90s even, it's just really a program to be applauded, I think. They're exceptional, and they're always fun to watch. You're going to, whether it's a dual meet or an individual tournament, Fulton's always going to have tough guys. They're always going to be competitive. So that's what I would say about them. They're looking to be in good shape. I think not going to keep the suspense too long on who I think is going to be the top Class A team. I mentioned it a little earlier. I think they're going to repeat as Class A champions. Not necessarily they're going to blow the whole field away, but I think that they're still a little bit just ahead of everybody else in the class. And I think that's a fair assessment. But that'll take us into who I think is going to be their top challenger, the Indian River Warriors. Indian River, I thought if any team was going to give Fulton like a real run for their money this year, it was going to be Indian River. But that was really only the case if leading youngster Logan Patterson remained at Indian River for his freshman year and beyond. Instead, it's been reported that he's transferred to the Copenhagen Beaver River program, and I think that has been confirmed. And so as a result, we're going to have to proceed with Patterson not returning for Indian River. So that takes us, instead of the leading lightweight in Patterson, to the leading heavyweight with Dylan Ashwood. Ashwood, talked about, had that great finals match with Crew City. I want to say it was an overtime for the 285-pound crown at sectionals last year. Ashwood was really close to winning and going to the state tournament. Ashwood's a senior. Actually, he dropped both finals matches, Class A and sectionals, to Crew City, so he was a runner-up in the postseason twice last year. And that was actually a double overtime loss to Crew City at the sectional tournament. I thought that was one of the better matches of the entire tournament. So I'm looking for Ashwood, whose only Section 3 D1 loss outside of those finals to Crew City came to Caleb Knoll of Carthage, who we talked about earlier, one of the best pound-for-pound wrestlers on the D1 side of Section 3. So I'm looking for Ashwood to regroup, make another charge at some postseason gold, get even closer. I don't think he's going to be alone, though, in chasing the top step of the podium. He's going to be joined by a trio of other seniors, I think, that are going to make some noise. Stephon Colbert, Sean Pilger, and Christopher Davis. Colbert is a guy that I've always really been impressed with. He's won 30 matches or more every year since his 8th grade season, and he's placed in the top 5 in the section 4 times, which is a really impressive performance that he puts in every year. They actually go in a pattern of 5th and then 3rd and then 5th and then 3rd, but I'm expecting him to break that pattern this year. I don't think there's any way he's going to be 5th. I think he'll even be better than top 3. I'm talking that this guy should be a sectional finalist. I actually predicted him to be in the finals last year, and he came up a match short. He actually lost in the semifinals by 2 points to the guy that ended up winning his bracket. So he was right there in terms of the top guys at his weight class last year. I think he'll be right there again this year. Pilger and Davis, meanwhile, those are 2 guys that have steadily improved since their freshman years, and both guys actually hit 20 wins for the first times in their careers last season. At sectionals, Davis actually reached the semifinals, but he ended up dropping to 6th. Still a good performance for him. Pilger was the recipient. He had 2 tough matches to start his day, and he ended up dropping both of those, but he still had a good performance in the class tournament to reach sectionals, and like I said, he had over 20 wins for the first time. And so if I had to make an early prediction, I would guess both of those guys are going to be back and better. I'd be willing to bet they'll both make it out of the podium for Davis again and for Pilger the first time at the SRC Arena in February. And then talking about these leading seniors of Indian River, you can't forget about a couple of the youngins that are on the Warriors team. Alex Matthew, 4th in Class A, 25 wins. Tyler Pitts, 24 wins, 3rd in Class A. Both of those guys are young. They're lightweights. They're impressive. They're tough. They're going to be definitely mixing it up. Matthew was impressive. I believe he missed the sectional tournament last year, which was a bummer, but he was still a top lightweight throughout the year. Pitts is a guy that I've seen seemingly improve over the last couple of years, and they're both definitely going to be, I think, good contenders this year to be on the box at the SRC Arena in February as well. They're both also, Matthew and Pitts, they're going to make it easier to cope with the loss of Patterson. So that's a big deal for Indian River. in the bottom part of their lineup. It's not going to be as big of a hit now that Patterson's gone because they got these two guys to fill it in. So with all those guys, I'm thinking Indian River is going to be runner-ups in Class A behind Fulton. They should be just fine there in second. I think that they're going to be challenging for a top 5 in the whole section. And so even with losing a guy who's a sectional runner-up in Patterson, I think they're going to do just fine. And with that, that takes us out of the top 2 teams, Fulton and Indian River, and it takes us into one of the more interesting teams in Class A, the New Hartford Spartans. I don't think there'll ever be a year where New Hartford doesn't have a wrestler or two just primed to be the favorite for a Section 3 title. They've had a Section 3 champion every year since 2012, and they've actually totaled 8 champions in those past 5 years. 2 of those 8 championships belong to Ian McKenna, who's going to be he's an incoming junior, won the championship last year despite actually being injured for a month leading up to the tournament. And I think, according to CNY, that kept him from getting 100 career varsity wins. He's close to that, so he'll likely get that this year. And McKenna's also yet to win a match at the New York State tournament in 2 tries. So you can bet this year he's going to be looking to accomplish all those things. Another sectional title, get 100 career varsity wins, win a match at the state tournament. And if he does win a sectional title again this year, he's going to be on the same path as his brother Kellen, who we mentioned just a little bit in the first video. Kellen was a 4-time sectional champion. Ian's already got 2, and he's got 2 more years of eligibility in high school. So he could match his brother right there with 4. But like I said, McKenna was hurt for a month last year. Another guy on New Hartford who was hurt was Lucas King. King's a 2-time sectional placer, and he started out 8-2 last year, but ended up having to miss all of January and February with an injury. So if he can stay healthy, this is his senior season, I think. He's going to be back stronger. He's going to be more determined, I would believe, which would only be bad news for the rest of Section 3 because he's a talented guy. And with King out last year and McKenna hurt for a month, a lot of the pressure was put on Dan Tarani, who is going to be a sophomore, I believe. A lot of expectation was put on him to carry the lightweights for the Spartans with the 2 top lightweights out. And Tarani, he wrestled with King at 99 pounds as an 8th grader. He had no problem stepping up. He actually placed in every individual tournament he took a part of, finished the year with a 3rd in Class A and a 4th in Section 3. So he was just, waiting for his opportunity. And he got it when McKenna and King both had to step out of the lineup with injuries. And so now, if they all come back healthy next year, you got McKenna, King, and Tarani. They're all typically pretty similar in weight. And so if New Hartford can work it out where those 3 guys follow each other in the lineup, the Spartans could be on the verge of one of the more intimidating 1-2-3 punches in all of Section 3. That's 3 really tough guys there. McKenna, obviously he's a sectional favorite. King, if he made the finals, nobody would really be surprised. Just him and Tarani definitely expected to be like top 4 because they've already been that. And so with that, they're going to be just fine when they heads to the sectional tournament. As far as the class tournament goes, I'm going to have them in 5th place. Just because the depth necessarily isn't there, but the viable sectional contenders are there with McKenna, King, and Tarani. So when it flips over to the sectional tournament and each team has less guys, they'll probably be in like a higher percentile. As far as Class A goes, though, I have them at 5th, which is just fine. It's where they placed last year. So I don't expect them, getting any worse with the loss of a couple seniors. I think they lost Kellen McKenna, and I think Thomas Zagarelli, who also got hurt last year, actually. So hopefully New Hartford can stay healthy this year and live up to their full potential because they got a lot of it with those guys. So that's what I have to say as far as Fulton, Indian River, and New Hartford goes for Class A. That's been part 2 of this preview. Like I said, I want to keep it a little short and sweet, so we're going to cut it off right here. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back next time for part 3. In part 3, we're going to be talking about the Oswego Buccaneers. There's been a lot going on with that program in the preseason. And we're going to talk about the Watertown Cyclones and the Whitesboro Warriors. Not going to want to miss those 3 teams because they're a big part of Class A. So I hope to see you guys back for that one. Hope you enjoy this one, and I will see you later.
You heard about him last video, so check out Auburn wrestler Hunter Duggar's interview in the CNY forums. Check back on October 11th for part 3 of the Class A previews.